My name is Jillian Jalali, and I am the creator and host of the true crime podcast Court Junkie, where I cover criminal cases and trials. Just to give you a tiny little bit of a background, I started Court Junkie as a website back in 2013, where I covered missing persons cases and unsolved cases and trials. And then in 2016, I decided to take that concept and turn it into a podcast and focus just on criminal trials. So that's a little bit about Court Junkie. And I decided to make this channel so that I can come on here and talk about different cases that I've covered and just different things that are going on with Court Junkie and with myself. In today's video, we are going to talk about my recent appearance on the television show 2020 and my experience shooting it, the things that happened leading up to it, and things that happened afterwards. It all started back in 2017. I was pregnant with my first and only daughter, and I was sick throughout my pregnancy with morning sickness, I'd say up until about 15 or 16 weeks. This producer from 48 Hours reached out to me and asked if I wanted to collaborate on a project with her. And I made the really bad business decision of turning it down. And I did that because I was just not feeling well. I mean, I was very pregnant. I was working on this weekly podcast, and I was doing everything by myself at the time. The research, the writing, the narrating, the editing, everything. So I was really kind of overwhelmed with just being sick all the time, and then with this podcast that I had recently started and was really trying to grow. Fast forward up until I think about February of this year, and that same producer who is now with 2020 reached out and asked if I would be interested in coming on 2020 and talking about the Dalia Dippolito case, which is a case that I had covered on my podcast. So this time, I was not pregnant, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. I was so excited to do this. This was going to be awesome. And so we planned it out. I was going to fly out to New York, and they were going to do my hair and makeup, and I would film in their studios. And oh yeah, my husband was going to come too, and they were going to pay for his ticket, and they were going to treat us to dinner. And basically, something like this just doesn't happen to me at all. So this was, an absolute dream come true. I had watched 2020 for as long as I could remember, and the thought that I was going to be on it, me, talking about a true crime case, it just was overwhelming and awesome. Anyway, this was in March, so this was actually supposed to happen in mid-March, right before COVID-19 happened. So right before the trip to New York, I had a trip scheduled with one of my girlfriends to Miami. It was a trip that we had scheduled a while in advance, and, we were going to go out, two moms, needing a break from family life and just kind of living it up on the beach kind of thing. We went out there, and we were in a Miami bubble. I mean, we would go to restaurants, and all the restaurants were packed. There was, we'd go to the beach. The beaches were packed. There was no mention whatsoever of COVID-19. No one was talking about it. It just was not a thing in mid-March in Miami when we were there. And the only way I would know that, COVID-19 was getting aggressively worse in the United States was when I would open up Twitter or talk to my husband. I got an email on that Saturday while we were there from the ABC producer canceling the trip, saying, this has now been declared a global pandemic and our studios are going to close. We're not going to be able to do this. Hang in there, though. Hopefully it will still happen. I mean, honestly, I thought it wasn't going to happen anymore. I was definitely bummed out, but at that point I was like, you know what? The fact that they even asked me is so cool, and I'm good. If it doesn't happen, I'm good. I was asked. It's pretty freaking cool. So, but fast forward to, we were quarantined for a while, and then in the beginning of May, I was told that it was back on. They had a date, an air date of May 15th, and we wouldn't be allowed to go to New York and film it in their studios, but we could do it remotely. And so the producer said, "Oh, great, you have an iPhone? Cool. You'll shoot it on your iPhone, and I'll be on the phone asking you the questions, and you'll send us the video afterwards, and that's how we'll do it." So we thought it was kind of strange, but we were like, okay, cool. As a side note, I did think at one point that I was being punked. I was like, I don't really know if 2020 would do this. Maybe this producer isn't really with 2020. Maybe I'm being set up for some kind of prank, or I don't even know. So I did definitely do some excessive Googling of this producer at the time to make sure that she was legit. Thankfully, she was, and that was not the case. But then we found out that it wasn't going to work. And so she asked if they would be able to send a camera crew to my home and they could shoot us in the backyard, because that would be, along with their guidelines, and we could do it that way. I don't have the type of backyard that they may have been picturing in their heads. I don't have like a beautiful in-ground pool with palm trees surrounding it, where I could just kind of set up right out there and do that. No, I live in the suburbs of Chicago, where this is in the very beginning of May, so the weather can be kind of sketchy, and it's just not like that. And sure enough, on the day that they wanted to film, it was going to be in the 50s and raining, and it just wasn't going to work. Thankfully, we were able to finally find a studio in Chicago, shout out to BAM Studios, where we were going to film everything. Now, if there's one thing that no one ever told me when having a kid, was how dangerous toddlers can be. And about 2 days prior to this taping, my daughter ended up, I think we were playing around, and she ended up kicking me in the face. And I had this big red mark on my cheek. And I thought it was going to turn into something more. So that was a little scary, but thankfully it faded away. Another thing was that I did not have access to a hair and makeup artist. We're in a pandemic. We're being quarantined. 2020 couldn't provide anything, and I couldn't hire anybody because pandemic. So I had to do everything myself, and I am not any kind of beauty guru, okay? And my hair hadn't been done. I had roots coming in. I have naturally very dark hair and some grays in there even now. And, so my roots had come in. And as far as makeup is concerned, I don't know what I'm doing, especially for TV or for videos. So I had to kind of make do. But I am so non-beauty savvy that I didn't even bring a compact with me with powder in it to powder my face in case it got shiny. It just wasn't even a thought. And so when we got there, they did the temperature check, and, we all had to wear masks. There were 2 camera guys that were wearing masks, and the producer was on the phone asking me questions. I would be looking at my husband while the camera guy was right next to him, and I would answer the questions. With all of the lights and everything, it gets kind of hot. And at one point during filming, the camera guy said, "Oh, your forehead's a little shiny. I'm sure you brought a compact. Can you, powder your face?" I hadn't brought a compact, but I did have this little container of bronzer on me. And so I was like, okay, I'll just use that. So I took like the little brush and I, quickly fixed my forehead, and we continued filming. After filming, I was feeling pretty good. I was feeling pretty confident. I felt like it had gone well. I didn't know, I really didn't know how it went, but I felt like I did okay. They'd probably be able to get a few clips maybe that they could use, hopefully. But I was also relieved. This was something that I had been, looking forward to, but also dreading, just because how nerve-wracking. I got home. I think I even made a little, Instagram story about the experience, and just like telling everybody, like, I just filmed for 2020, and I was really excited about it. I look in the mirror and I see this giant blob of bronzer on my forehead. Here I was feeling so confident and good and relieved that it was over, but like pretty good, like I had done it. And then, this is like the equivalent of coming out of the bathroom and, having toilet paper stuck to your foot or your dress, tucked into the back of your tights. We've all done that, right? So it aired on May 15th, which was the day before my birthday, my 25th birthday. And it actually wasn't that bad, I will say. I mean, you could tell if you knew about it, but if you didn't know it, you probably wouldn't have been able to tell. So good thing I didn't tell anybody, right? I put a story up on Instagram stories telling all of my listeners that I had a big patch of bronzer on my forehead. So I outed myself. But anyway, that was my story. It was a lot of fun to shoot. I'm super excited and grateful that I did it. And some other opportunities have since arisen from that appearance. I recently shot a segment for a new true crime show that's going to be on VH1. I don't have any of the details of that yet, though. And I'm supposed to shoot a segment for a Discovery ID show next month. But yeah, that's my story about 2020 and how that came to be. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time.